one of the things about the racist ideology that's so attractive and seductive is the lack of accountability that goes along with being racist. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I haven't mowed my yard all summer and I've got cars sitting up on blocks, but a black American family moves down to the end of the street, and I'm going to blame them for my low property value. I am never going to look in the mirror and admit to myself that I'm white trash and I'm the reason for my own low property value or other problems, because it's a lot easier to blame somebody you don't know for the things that make you unhappy or that you see unfair in the world, rather than taking responsibility.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren
and I'm Maureen. So in today's episode, we're going to be looking at a video of a palm-colored person who says that he used to be very racist back in his own young days, and he's explaining to us today what made him change and why he is embarking on a journey to make his own people look at black people in a different way.
Right, in this video he's gonna be boldly telling his own people, and when I say that I mean the palm-colored people, that black people are not and were never the source of their problem or the cause of their problem. But before we talk too much, let's watch this video and then we come back and talk about it. Remember to subscribe if it's your first time here, and also leave us a comment on what you think about this episode, right? Let's watch.
Jamin Scott said, "I've always been interested in what really makes people racist." Well, that's the billion-dollar question, ain't it?
And based on my experience, I'm going to say a lot of it's hereditary, at least from what I've seen. You're raised that way by parents or grandparents, your family. You're surrounded by a culture that thinks this ideology is okay. So I think a big chunk of us that grew up with racism, that's how we got it. But then you also have friends that were raised that way, and you kind of naturally attract each other. And as far as what being, you have to be taught to be racist. I could be taught to hate plastic bottles full of water. As a kid, you're that easily conditioned. I could go through life hating a bottle of water and not knowing why. So it's something that was taught, especially in my case, but the people that taught me were taught by people they loved and trusted, and it came on down the line. It's not like they just all of a sudden decided to do that. But one of the things about the racist ideology that's so attractive and seductive is the lack of accountability that goes along with being racist. And here's what I mean by that. Let's say I haven't mowed my yard all summer and I've got cars sitting up on blocks, but a black American family moves down to the end of the street, and I'm going to blame them for my low property value. I am never going to look in the mirror and admit to myself that I'm white trash and I'm the reason for my own low property value or other problems, because it's a lot easier to blame somebody you don't know for the things that make you unhappy or that you see unfair in the world, rather than taking responsibility. That is seductive and sexy. And when it's reinforced and conditioned into you, you don't know there's another way. And then when your friends get together, and it's a phenomenon looking back on, you know, especially when you get into the circle, that it's mutually assured destruction. If everybody's saying the N-word, they're going to look at you to make sure you say it, because now you're kind of guilty, and you are not going to go rat on each other, right? So you have this safety in this group, and you can make the horrible jokes, you can blame everybody else, but you don't have to admit to do anything wrong yourself. It's kind of crazy, and it gets so entrenched in your brain that, again, you don't really know how to stop it. Some people aren't even fully aware of it. They'll be in denial that they're racist. I've seen that a lot, and there's a difference between being tone deaf and racist, but there's a lot of self-denial in it. And it's also hard to give up, because in my experience, when I confronted my own racism, it shook my foundation. You know, if you've heard me say before, I realized I was a fake Christian, because you can't serve God and be racist. It's like my morality and my faith and my racism had never intersected until much later in life. And that was hard. That was really hard. And then when you realize that black people aren't the cause of all the world's problems, and you can no longer blame them because they had nothing to do with what's going on in your life. From an outside perspective, I am sure that it is very difficult to make sense of or even apply logic to, because it's illogical. But when you start to accept responsibility for your own problems, in my experience, I felt like it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, like a yoke taken off my neck. I know that sounds crazy, but it's very liberating to accept responsibility. Like, wow, I'm kind of in control of my own destiny. I've made mistakes. It's put me where I am. That, I learned from that to stop making so many mistakes, and I can get further along. It has nothing to do with people outside of me. But it sure is easy to blame others rather than admitting you're a screw up. I know that's kind of a long and winding answer, but it's a very complex thing. But again, it's when it's what you're taught and you don't know any better. I mean, I'm not making excuses for people, because at some point most people know. It's just they don't want to do anything about it. And plus, how do you stop being a racist? I mean, it's not a switch you flip. There's no Facebook ad that's saying stop being a racist in 30 days or get your money back. It's only $99.99. They don't do that. Barnes & Noble doesn't sell any books. And I don't see where a lot of people who grew up racist have mapped out how to stop being one, how to overcome it or confront it. I mean, I didn't have anything to rely on. It was trial and error and prayer and just a desire to be better. And then, one of the key things that I did to overcome my own racism is to educate and learn and embrace Black American culture, my brothers and sisters in the community. Because, I've said this, I mean this when I say this, is to know Black Americans is to love Black Americans. And you can't love what you don't know. And I think the coup de grace, the icing on the cake for me in this journey was getting out and just going out and having fellowship and breaking bread and hugging necks of people who don't look like me. So, again, looking back, I can understand what made it appealing. But with my perspective and mindset today, I was a freaking moron.
Why I stopped being a racist? Part 1. I've been asked probably well over 1,000 times in the comments and messages why I chose to confront my own racism and my prejudice ideology. So I thought I'd just have an honest conversation with you and break it down over a few parts and let you see into the mind of someone like me, the way I grew up, and the man I'm becoming. Now here's the crazy thing. I've only ever known one racist in my life for sure, and that's me. Because I can't speak into the hearts and minds of another human being and what they think and feel. That's not fair and that's prejudicial of me. So I'm the only one I've ever known, so I feel I can speak with authority about this. I'm not calling out other people who are. This is simply about my evolution and the things I confronted and some of the difficulties and some of the beautiful parts of this. Why is it I grew up with so much prejudice and bias and discrimination in my life? Well, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and I am Arkansas proud. Let me just say that right off the top. But I grew up with people who taught me these things, and it was instilled in me. I mean, it was just reinforced over and over. And then for the most part, I lived in an echo chamber of other people who thought the same thing. So I didn't know it was possible to think any other way. I was raised Christian. I cannot explain to you why my faith in God, my morality, and my racism took so long to cross paths. I can't explain it, but it probably took about 40 years to figure that out. There's a whole series of events in my life, I guess, ultimately that led up to this. And prison was probably one of the biggest catalysts, because when you're on 23-1 lockdown with someone of a different color from you in the same cell, you shut your mouth and you listen. You ask questions. And I had so many different cellmates from different countries, from different races and heritages. And it just really opened my mind. And sitting in prison, I had a lot of time to think. And I had some old timers tell me, I need to do my time. Don't let my time do me. And those are good words of advice. But I started digging deep into myself and my flaws. And because I was probably the biggest asshole I knew at that time. And I wasn't proud of that at all. And I knew I needed to change if I wanted to live a productive and healthy life and just be somebody likable. I just couldn't see the world for the way it really was. And that breaks my heart that it took me so long to see it. But the beauty that is born from this change in me, or this growth, is just crazy. God is amazing. So if you want me to continue this, let me know and I'll do a part 2.
Racists and white supremacists don't hate black people. They don't. They hate themselves. because racism and white supremacy is rooted in self-loathing, but it's very, very attractive to weak-minded people because you don't have to be accountable for your own BS. You can look down on other people. You can blame them for your problems. Like, that's really attractive to dumb people.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the video on the comment section. You know, one thing the guy said was that stood out for me, that he had, the reason why he had to stop being racist here is that he realized, you know, I don't know if you remember him talking about being raised in a Christian home, and the turnaround for him was the point where he realized that he was being a fake Christian. Guys, imagine being a Christian and being racist, being that Christianism is the religion where they drive
theory to do with being compassion, loving your neighbor as you love Christ.
And for people to be racist, you can imagine the kind of acts they take against other people who do not look like them. And also another thing he talked about was that he stopped being racist because he first had the desire to do better, you know. And this is what I normally say. It's not, I mean, for people who, if you're used to living a certain kind of way, you'll really need to put in the work for you to start living differently and treating people differently.
Also another thing that I found very interesting, which I kind of agree with him, was that he said it was only when he was in prison, where he was imprisoned by other different ethnicities, that he realized that black people were not the cause of his problems and he was being a racist. And furthermore, he said it is only then, by mingling with those black people and other people from different ethnicities, that he realized that he never liked or loved black people because he had never mingled with any of them. A turning point was also when he started hanging out with black people, for he could not love what he did not know. You know?
And I feel like that is quite an important thing, and he's a clear example and a good, let's say a good example of if someone wills to do better, or someone, if that's
people can be can change whatever they've been indoctrinated to think or believe. Because from how he's talking, he might have grown up in a predominantly white society for him to not have mingled with black people. He grew up in a predominantly black, white space, right? But this is also him. It's also why we say, when you grow up, when you reach a certain age, you can no longer blame your childhood or your parents for turning out the way you've turned out, or for treating people badly.
You take afterwards.
Right, because when he grew up, he got a chance to mingle with people of different ethnicities, and he particularly took a step to change his own ways. His parents didn't convince him, his friends didn't convince him. It was a personal conviction that he took upon himself to change how he was viewing black people.
And when he said, which makes sense when you look at what happens in society, you know, how people tend to be pulled towards each other or tend to really get along well because they're bonded by the same beliefs. And he said, so if you choose to have a specific type of group of friends, you almost,
if you're racist, you'll almost most likely
have
attract
the same.
Your magnet will be attracting racist people.
And this leads me to my next point. You know, when you talk about palm-colored people not wanting, majority of them who do not want to change because the system benefits them, it's not that they don't know.
I feel like once you are at an age where you can consciously know right from wrong, you are at a position to change some things. You can't tell me you've gone into your 20s, 30s, 50s not knowing that racism is bad or what racism looks like. Because if he could know what racism looks like and he was a racist,
and unfair and treatment, you will know.
Right, you won't justify a 60-year-old woman who goes to the store and spits on a black person just because they don't like that they're sharing a store with a black person, and you justify that is how she was raised and indoctrinated to, dislike black people.
What you're not changing, you're choosing. And at this point, I feel like a lot of people, we are seeing a lot of people like him come out and talk about these things. So it's not that they don't know. Right now, what is happening is that
they're also
people
having
like
a moment of.
No, they're not having. They've been having these moments. Only that because of the internet, people like like him are exposing their own kind, because it's not that they don't know. We know that they know now, you know, because they're talking about it here. So for those who are putting in the work, I feel like it does make a difference. And for those who are choosing for it to stay that way, I feel like, you know, you guys, okay, I don't want to get into religion so much, because I know different people on this platform have different beliefs. Yeah, but one thing I know that all of us have in common is the fact that, I don't know if you ever come across this saying that whatever you choose to do on earth, it must come around, you know. So
some call it karma, some call it divine justice,
whatever name you give it, but whatever you always do on this earth, if you don't do good, and good will come back to you. But if you're not doing good towards someone else, whatever you're doing is unfair towards someone else, you will experience that kind of treatment in one way or another, but you will know when karma visits you, you know.
Yeah, and I guess this is why also they say, because there's also another episode where we did, where a palm-colored person was calling out their own and saying why white people are more miserable than black people, and it is because of all the bad things they do to black people. Because you know, when you're evil to somebody, you can never really have that inner peace. You will always be disturbed, because nobody likes being a bad person, but if you keep being a bad person, you'll just live in misery, and it will reflect physically.
Right. Anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode. We are so happy you got to keep us company. Hopefully we'll catch you on our next.
Yeah, so
and
let us know what
subscribing.
Right, we'll see you on our next episode.